Hello, hello, and welcome to Yoga with Carolynne. Are you looking to maybe cultivate a little bit more spaciousness in your life as well as in your body? That is what today's accessible yoga flow is all about. So props you're going to want for today's practice are, of course, your yoga mat, a blanket, a couple of blocks, a meditation cushion if you have it, or a pillow, just because we are going to be seated for a little while, so it'll be helpful to have that, and then a strap. If you don't have a yoga strap, I don't have a yoga strap. You've heard me say that before if you've been here before. I just use a bathrobe tie, so grabbing something that is nice and long so that we can explore some beautiful stretches across your heart. So put on your comfy clothes, grab your props, and let's get started. Welcome to Yoga with Carolynne, teaching empaths and sensitive souls just like you how to create a collaborative relationship with your body through cozy, accessible yoga and self-care practices in order to live a life filled with less doing and more being. So one of the things that I find really helpful for myself as somebody who is a sensitive soul, and I know that if you're watching this, you most likely are one as well, is that it can be really helpful to invite in spaciousness into your life, into the way in which you move through the world, into how you construct your schedule. And as a yoga teacher, I'm a firm believer that if you're looking to incorporate something in your life, it can be really helpful to embody that in your yoga practice. So the way we're going to do that in today's class is inviting in spaciousness into most specifically the upper part of the body, so finding some nice stretches there, and also in the way in which you move and the way in which you breathe on your mat today. So really putting some space in between the poses so that you can allow yourself to feel through it. And I'll also mention that just in order to honor your time here, there is going to be no Shavasana at the end, but if you really love a good Shavasana at the end of your practice, there's a link to a guided Shavasana video right in the description box below that you can click right at the end of the practice so that you can still enjoy some final relaxation. So when you're ready, you'll make your way onto your back, please. So once you make your way onto your back, I'll ask that you start with a nice big shape here. So allowing the legs to be long and the arms to come up overhead with the palms of the hands shining up towards the sky. So take a second here to make sure that this feels okay in your body. So if you do need to make any sort of adjustments, if it doesn't feel good on the low back, then you can bring a bend to the legs, soles of the feet come to the mat, and your knees knock in towards each other. And if the shoulders feel a little uncomfortable here, then definitely honor the way that you're feeling here. So if it doesn't feel good to have the arms outstretched up overhead, what would it feel like if you were to soften into the elbows? Maybe it's a little bit softer in terms of the angles. It's not so straight in the arms. Take a second to scoop the shoulder blades underneath the back. And if this area of the body feels a little uncomfortable today, then that's okay. That's what we're focusing on today. If it feels safe to do so, you'll bring the eyes to a close. And just let yourself arrive here for a moment. You are here on your mat in your space. So as you welcome yourself into your practice today, you feel your physical body settling onto the mat. You feel your awareness begin to settle into your space. And that might mean that you begin to become aware of how you're feeling, how you're doing. We tend to live very busy lives, which is the opposite of living very spaciously, right? We tend to schedule things right up against other things, so we're rushing from thing to thing. So it's okay if when you settle here it feels like you're still in that mode. Be patient and kind with yourself. It's okay if it takes a little while to shift. The way in which you can help that shift happen is to begin to deepen and lengthen your breath. Give yourself time to cultivate that breath. What would it feel like to take up space in the way in which you breathe? Then we'll begin to find some movement. So from here, you'll take a nice big body stretch. So the arms are already up overhead, so allow your fingertips to stretch all the way from the toes. And here you can take a shape that might feel really good. So maybe it's just as you are, or maybe you bring some circles into the ankles or the wrists. It can feel kind of fun sometimes to lift the low back from the floor and play extending right foot away from right hand and then into the other side, finding side body stretch on the left side of the body. And then from here, you'll take one more inhale, stretch. And then with a sigh, exhale, just settle the body into the floor. And then from here, you'll come into a side body stretch. So allow your awareness to travel into your feet. And then you walk the feet over towards the right side of your space. And then you allow your awareness to come into the arms, the head, the shoulders, and you walk your upper body over towards the right side of your mat. Take a few deep breaths into where you feel the space beginning to be created along the left side of your body. And then you'll allow the feet to walk back into center, and then the arms, the head come back into center. And if you need to give your shoulders a break, you're welcome to bring the arms down alongside the body for a moment. And then you'll get ready to come into the shape on the other side. So I didn't mention this already, but if your shoulders are just like not loving the arms being up overhead at all, that's okay. They don't have to be up overhead. You can most definitely still find the stretch even if the arms are beside the body. So you start with walking the feet over towards the left side of your space, and then the arms, the head, the shoulders. Settling into a shape that feels good, that doesn't feel restrictive, doesn't feel uncomfortable. And then you take a few deep breaths along the right side of the body. And then start with the feet. So the feet walk back into center. The arms, the head, the shoulders walk back into center. And then allow the arms to come down alongside the body, giving those shoulders a nice break. So not only are you creating space in the body with the way in which we are coming into these different shapes, but allow yourself to find spaciousness in between the poses as well. There's no rushing any of this required. If at any point you feel like even I am going too quickly, then listen to what pace will feel right for you, and you can skip any poses that I say, or you can hang out in any poses a little bit longer than I am. I know that you'll catch on right back into it when you're ready. So from here, we're gonna do that nice big body stretch again to find that big expansion, big long shape in the body. And then from here, you'll come into a ball. So bring the knees in towards the body. Allow the hands to come onto the shins or the back of your thighs. And you can rest your head on the floor still, or maybe you want to come into a ball completely by lifting the head and bringing the forehead in towards the knees. It doesn't matter if the knees are touching or if the knees are wide, creating space for the front line of your body. And if you come into it and your head is up and you're like, no, that doesn't feel good, then bring your head back down. All good. And then you'll rock from side to massage into your low back. And then allowing yourself to roll onto one side of the body to then press yourself up and making your way into tabletop position, coming onto your hands and your knees. So that's why the blanket is here. You'll notice if you've been practicing with me for a little while that I tend to always place the blanket on the mat at the beginning because it's just nice to have that extra cushioning underneath of the knees, but it's not required. You get to choose here. And as you come into your tabletop position, you spread the fingers nice and wide. And we'll take a few rounds of cat and cow pose here. So again, allow yourself to move spaciously. You take an inhale to drop the belly down, the heart shines forward, the gaze looks forward or it looks up towards the sky. Starting at the base of your tailbone, you tip the tailbone, spread the shoulder blades wide and tuck the chin in towards the chest. I'll do that one more time. Inhale, drop the belly, heart shines forward, gaze looks forward and up. Exhale as you find the opposite shape. We're going to do that one more time, but this time hanging out in either one of the shapes. So you'll take an inhale, drop your belly down. And what does it feel like when you exhale here? Inhale again. And then on your exhale, find the opposite shape. Inhale here. Exhale. And then bringing yourself into your neutral tabletop position. We'll come into thread the needle pose next, so you'll keep the left hand as it is, and then take an inhale to reach the right hand up towards the sky. If it doesn't feel comfortable to have that right hand reaching up, then maybe you just bring the right hand onto the right hip or kind of anywhere on the body. Maybe it just hangs long, but what we're focusing on here is really pressing into that left hand to extend out of that arm and finding a nice stretch across the front of your heart. And then from here, you'll lead with your right hand. So the right hand comes down, but it doesn't land on the floor. The palm is facing your gaze, and you reach the fingertips of that right hand towards the left, behind that planted left hand. And then you bring the back of the right arm down onto the floor, and your head comes down onto the floor. So I'll just give you a front view so that you can see what this looks like. So you've got your entire right arm down on the floor, and your head is touching the floor. If your body can't comfortably come down into the shape, then this would be where you place your blocks underneath of your body to raise the floor up, so you can place the arm onto those blocks. And then you'll take a few deep breaths right here, noticing what you feel in your heart. You might feel it a little bit more into the front line of your back or the back line of your back. And then you'll press into the left hand to then bring yourself back into your tabletop position. So take a second here. So we're not rushing from pose to pose. You take a moment here, notice what you feel. And if you're like, I don't know what I feel, that's okay too. Allow yourself to just pause. And then we'll come into that shape on the other side. So I'm going to be turning away from you just so that you can see what this might look like from the back. So you'll keep the right hand down on the floor, and then you lead with your inhale to reach the left hand up towards the sky. And again, the option is there to either keep the left hand up or bring the left hand onto the left hip, or wherever really, but we're really focusing on pressing into that right hand to extend out of that arm and finding a stretch across the front of your heart. And you take one more inhale here. Lead with your breath. Take your time. The fingertips of the left hand come down, but they don't settle down. They keep going. So the palm of the hand is now facing your gaze up towards the sky. And you keep reaching towards the right behind the planted right hand to then bring your arm down onto the floor, or maybe you're using your blocks again to raise the floor up. Arm comes down, left ear comes down. And that right hand stays in front of your gaze. And you can press a little bit more, press a little bit less. That gives you a bit more control over the sensation. So a reminder that if anytime you come into a shape and it really doesn't feel very good, then that's okay. You can skip it. This is your practice. This is your body. And then slowly you'll release out of the shape to bring yourself back into your tabletop position. And then we'll make our way into standing from here. So before you do that, I'll recommend that if you do have a blanket on your yoga mat, that you move that out of the way. And you'll make sure that you have your strap nearby. So most likely towards the front end of your yoga mat, because we're going to be using it for a few stretches to find some stretch across the heart. So if you've been in my classes before, then you'll know that there is an option to place blocks underneath of your hands as you make your way into your downward facing dog. And if that's something you've never heard before, I'll leave a couple of links to some other accessible yoga flow videos below. So making your way into what your downward facing dog will look like today by curling the toes under, straightening into the legs, and sending those hips up and back. And what would it mean? What would it feel like to find some space in this shape? So if you have a tendency to have kind of like a tiny, narrow positioning in your body in downward facing dog, would it feel a little bit more supportive, more spacious to widen the feet? Maybe away from each other, or even like further away from your hands? Does that feel better, or does it feel worse? Then if it feels worse, then find a spot that feels good. As Diane Bondi says, who is another really awesome accessible yoga teacher, she encourages students to not come into a Chihuahua down dog, but to come into like a Great Dane. So we're going to be coming into a standing forward fold next. So that might look like for you walking the hands back or walking the feet forward. You get to choose, so that you are making your way towards your strap, because we're going to be using that in the next shape. So making your way into your standing forward fold. Maybe for the first few moments you grab hold of your blocks to help raise the floor up. Find some softness in the knees and allow the head to drop. So if your gaze is looking down towards the floor, can you allow your gaze to look rather in between your legs? And then this is where we're going to find a stretch across the heart to begin to explore that. So you'll grab hold of your strap. If you are familiar with finding a bind and you know where we're going, I would recommend that you use a strap just to start out, because this is the first really big heart opener that we're finding. So you've got the strap in hand. Keep the strap in your right or your left hand to then bring the hands behind you, so right where your low back is, and then you grab hold of that strap.
So maybe your hands are about the width of your hips, and you notice what does it feel like here to just keep your hands where your low back is. If you're feeling any sort of tension in the body, it might help to just take an exhale at the mouth, soften the knees again, let the head drop. You can stay here with the hands where the low back is, or you can reach the hands up towards the sky. So notice what that feels like. Bringing some length into your neck. And then slowly you'll release the strap down towards the side. We are going to be using it again, so just make sure that it's still nearby. Allow the hands to drop back down towards the floor. And then from here, we'll roll up to standing. So press into the feet to roll all the way up. Once you come up, you roll the shoulders back to come into your mountain pose, Tadasana. So pause here. Again, there's no need to rush from one pose to the next. Allow yourself to notice what happens in the body here as you bring yourself all the way upright after being down on the floor for a little while. And then I'll ask that you turn towards the long edge of your yoga mat. And then you bring yourself into the center of your space. So if you need to take a second to move your device so that you can see me, then do that. So you bring yourself into the center of your mat, and then you take a nice big wide position with the feet. So as wide as feels comfortable, so don't get too caught up in oh, it needs to be really wide. So really allowing this shape to still feel supported, to still feel grounded. And then bring your heels in a little bit so that then it might feel a little bit more supportive, and allow the knees to stay pretty soft. And this is nothing fancy, nothing complicated. We're just gonna take an inhale to reach the hands out and all the way up towards the sky. And then allow yourself to take an exhale, drop the shoulders down away from the ears. And then bring your eyes to a close here. So you don't have to see me to know what we're doing. I would like you to feel into what shape would feel really nice. And you're going to allow the arms to fall down into a space where you feel like you're taking up space. So that may mean they don't move at all, or maybe it means that they move just a little bit, or maybe they go all the way out towards the side. Maybe the palms are up or the palms are down. And find a spot where you feel like you're taking up space, because you are allowed to take up space. Take a few deep breaths right here. Beautiful. From here, you'll allow the hands to drop down towards your side. You're going to come into a warrior two. So you'll allow the left toes to open towards the short edge of your mat, the right toes to open towards the side of your mat. And then you're coming into a bend into that left knee. So if you begin to bend and the knee comes in front of the ankle, then you walk that right foot back a little bit. Once you find a positioning that feels grounding, that feels supportive, then you open the arms up. Soften the shoulders away from the ears, and the gaze comes above the middle finger of the left hand. We're going to come into exalted warrior, which is a really beautiful, spacious shape from here. So you'll flip the left palm up towards the sky and lead with the back hand. So the back hand reaches back and down onto that back extended leg, and you reach the left hand up towards the sky. Where do you feel this? Breathe into that spot. And then slowly you'll release that shape to bring yourself back into your warrior two. And then we'll do that on the other side. So move slow here. Bring the hands onto the hips. That'll help support your pivot. So you straighten into that left leg. Allow the left toes to be facing now the long edge of your mat. The right toes to open towards the back end of your mat. And then you open up into the arms and you bend into that right knee. Again, avoiding that knee to come in front of the ankle. So allow the knee to come above the ankle and open the right knee out towards the side. Gaze is above the middle finger of the right hand. And from here, you flip the right palm up towards the sky and you take an inhale into that left hand. Left hand reaches back and down, and then you reach the fingertips of the right hand up towards the sky. Maybe the gaze is looking up, or maybe it feels more comfortable for your gaze to look forward. And then you'll release that shape to bring yourself back into your warrior two. And then bring the hands onto the hips to straighten into that right leg. And the right set of toes are going to turn towards the long edge of your mat. We're now going to come into a wide-legged forward fold using that strap. So you'll want to grab hold of that strap and then allow the hands to come behind you, grabbing hold of that strap again. So we're finding that same positioning in the arms that we did in the standing forward fold, but we're doing it from here. A little bit of a different change in the legs. So allow yourself to sink into your tailbone, sink into your feet. Maybe bring some softness into the knees. And then take an inhale, find length here, find space. Leading with your heart, tipping your hips back, and you allow yourself to come forward and down. Once you find a spot that feels like you're beginning to find a stretch in the legs, you can keep the hands where they are on the low back, or you can play with reaching the hands up towards the sky. Let the head drop completely here. So it might feel really good for you to just stay really still. It can also feel kind of fun to find a little bit of movement. Maybe that movement is like the hands rocking from side to side and you twist a little bit from right to left. Or maybe it's something totally different. You get to explore here. And before you bring yourself up to standing, you'll allow the hands to drop back down towards the low back, and the strap settles back down onto the floor. And then you bring the hands onto the hips and you press into the feet to bring yourself all the way up to standing. And then you bring the feet back in together and bring yourself towards the front end of your space. Once you bring yourself towards the front end of your space, we'll bring it back down towards the floor. So take an inhale to reach the hands out and up towards the sky. Softness in the knees as you bring yourself all the way down into your forward fold. The hands come down onto the floor or blocks to come back into your downward facing dog. Take a moment here in your downward facing dog. Your spacious downward facing dog. And then you'll bring the knees down towards the floor and you'll make your way into your seated position. You can grab hold of your meditation cushion or just your pillow or your folded up blanket so that you can have some sort of support underneath of your sit bones so that this shape feels comfortable while you're here. You're going to be using your strap for the last few movements, the last few shapes. So if you've been to any one of my classes before, this is one of my favorite go-to stretches for across the heart. I do have a video where we do this for a little bit longer than we'll do today. So again, I'll leave that in the description box below. But we're gonna do like a mini version just so that we can end with some spaciousness across the heart, and then we'll bring the class to an end. So you grab a hold of your strap and you place the strap in your hands and you bring your hands in front of you. And then the hands are gonna be in a position where it's like a pretty wide V, so about the width of where your knees are in your cross-legged position. And then bring your eyes to a close here. take an inhale to reach the hands up towards the sky. And then if you want to take a peek at the device, so you can take a look at me or you can listen to my voice here, on your exhale, you'll allow the hands to drop back behind you and all the way down towards the floor. So keep the shoulders soft for this. You'll do that again. Take an inhale to reach the hands up. And exhale back down. Do that one more time, allowing yourself to be led by the length of your own spacious breath today. Next time your hands come forward and down, you'll bring the hands into a little bit of a narrower V. And then you'll take an inhale to reach the hands up towards the sky. And then you're coming into a position where you literally wouldn't be able to reach the hands back and down like you were just doing. And then you get to explore for a few moments. So you might have already come into a shape where you're beginning to shake or wobble a little bit in the arms. So then stay here and explore, just breathing into where you feel this. Or maybe you want to play a little bit by allowing the hands to drop over towards the left or the right. Sometimes it can feel really fun, fun being an interesting choice of words, maybe a little bit just different if you bend into the elbows and pull the elbows back and down. So I'm going to give you a few moments here to explore what bringing space into this area of the body will feel like for you today. Come into stillness. Slowly allow the hands to come back down in front of you, placing the strap to one side. The hands settle onto the lap or the knees and the eyes are closed. Allow yourself to be here in the experience of what's happening in this moment. Then bringing the hands into heart center, pressing the palms together, thumbs coming in towards the heart. Intentionally bringing your practice to a close here by taking a moment to really notice what felt good in today's practice. And you have the opportunity and the choice to choose if there's something that you'd like to bring off of your mat into your life. What would it feel and look like for you to live spaciously? What does creating space in your life mean for you? We'll end the class with one last breath together, you and I. Inhale. At the mouth, let it go. And fluttering the eyes open. Thank you so much for joining me during today's yoga class to create space. I really hope that you enjoyed today's practice, and there's lots of different ways for you to explore this practice. There's some ways in which you can incorporate this with some yin yoga postures or some restorative yoga postures. So if that's something that sounds really interesting to you, then please let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to put together some other practices that really revolve around this idea of spaciousness. Please like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. That is the best way for you to support more free, cozy, accessible online yoga. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the mat.